So good evening. Welcome to our Headliners book event at the National Press Club, the place where news happens. My name is Jessica Mendoza. I am a member of the Board of Governors and co-host of the Journal podcast, which is the flagship news podcast of the Wall Street Journal. Please subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts. We're very, very delighted to have Aldo Cazzullo here with us today for what promises to be a thought-provoking discussion about history, not as a closed chapter, but as a mirror reflecting our present. Aldo Cazzullo has been one of Italy's most prominent voices in journalism and historical commentary, and he has helped shape the national dialogue in Italy and beyond for over 30 years. He's a celebrated author and senior journalist, and now deputy managing director at Corriere della Sera, did I say that right? In Milan. And when he's not busy reporting or helping to run a newsroom, he's published 30 books. You are a busy man.
Too many.
Too many. On Italian history and identity. So today we are discussing the enduring influence of ancient civilizations on modern life, which is the focus of his most recent book, The Neverending Empire, The Infinite Impact of Ancient Rome. The Roman Empire was full of strengths and contradictions, but with a level of fragility. The ancient empire continues to shape the Western world, and in particular, the United States. Rome was a republic that evolved into a sprawling superpower. It also struggled with immigration, economic inequality, and the strain of distant wars and the tension between inclusion and control. As America struggles with questions about identity, democracy, and its role in the world, Aldo's work offers a lens through which we can examine America's own trajectory. From City of Seven Hills to Capitol Hill, thank you for joining us today, Aldo.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with American colleagues. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm going to start us off on a lighter note. You've probably heard of this by now, but there is a running joke on the internet making fun of the fact that men seem to think about the Roman Empire at least once a day or so. Aldo, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Listen, in the last years, I thought many times a day the Roman Empire, but because my idea is that the Roman Empire never fell, because every emperor in history presented himself as the new Caesar, and every revolutionary presented himself as the new Spartacus. For example, when at the end of World War I in Germany, the communists tried to make the revolution, they called themselves Spartacides. Also, Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht went to a bad end. But it's amazing that in Berlin in 1918, there were women and men ready to fight and to die in the name of a mysterious slave who have done the same 2 millennia earlier. Every empire in history presented and portrayed itself as the heir of the Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople.
Right.
Constantinople was a prodigy, was a miracle. Constantinople resisted the barbarians, resisted the Arabs, resisted the Turks until 1453. And the nephew of the last emperor married the first Tsar, Ivan the Great. And some claimed that Moscow was the third Rome. The first was Rome, the second was Constantinople, the third was Moscow. The Manifest Destiny, it was created by O'Sullivan, a colleague of ours, in 1845 about America. The Manifest Destiny was to rule the world, but also the Russians think to have a manifest destiny to protect Christianity, to protect a civilization. Tsar is a word that derives from Caesar. Kaiser is a word that derives from Caesar, the Russian Empire, the German Empire, the Holy Roman Empire of Charlemagne. Napoleon adored Caesar. He wrote a book about him. He wanted to be crowned not king, rather than emperor of the French. We had the British Empire. UK controlled India with a handful of soldiers, most of whom were Indian, as like the Romans kept the barbarians at bay with armies composed of and commanded by barbarians. But the real heir of the Roman Empire is American Empire. What What was the symbol of Roman legions? The eagle. What's the American symbol? The eagle. What's the USA's motto? It's a Latin motto. E pluribus unum, out of many states, one. English is the new Latin. It's the language of the world. Look around us. Everything in Washington, D.C. reminds me of Rome, the Senate. Capitol Hill is named after the Roman Capitolium, one of the 7 legendary hills upon which Rome was born. And the dome of Capitol Hill is a copy of St. Peter Church Dome, where 2 days ago it was elected the first American Pope. Jefferson Memorial is a copy of the Pantheon. In Lincoln Memorial, there are we call in Italy the fascios, the symbol of power in ancient Rome, but it became also the symbol of fascism. All the words of politics, all the language of the power derives from Latin: people, citizen, liberty, dictatorship, society, treaty, candidate, elected, veto, propaganda, suffrage, president, socialism, communism, liberalism, nationalism, republic, res publica, public thing. The idea that the state belongs to everyone was born in Rome. It's true that democracy is a Greek word, but the first real democracy in history was Rome. In the Republic, there was not, it was not the Senate. It was the people that made the laws, that declared the war, that elected the consuls. And at the end, the strategy of the American Empire is the same as that of the Roman Empire, turning the defeated enemies into allies, just like America did with Italy and Germany and Japan after the Second World War, and valuing the cultural, military, economical influence over the occupation of territories. Real power is power on souls and over minds, over souls, not over land.
So it turns out we're all thinking about the Roman Empire all the time. You just made a great case for that. Can we just pause for a moment? We just need a little bit of a logistical change here, making sure we hear our guest well.
Thank you so much.
So all of the things that you've laid out, these are all things that have existed for some time, whether it's empires of the past or the United States. Why write this book now? Was there a moment in recent history that made the parallels between ancient Rome and modern Western civilization, especially America, feel particularly urgent to you?
We have to face the same issues that ancient Romans had to face. For example, the permanent state of war. Why did the Romans always win the wars? Because the Roman soldier didn't fight only for himself or for his family or his tribu or his clan, just like the barbarians did. The Roman soldier fought for something more, for something bigger, for the state, for the republic, for the empire, for Rome. And the Roman legionary was not a hero. He was a military professional. His goal was not a glorious death. His goal was a peaceful retirement, thanks to the land, to the gold taken away by the enemy. And the Roman general was not a heroic figure, a soldier, win or die. He was an engineer, a strategist, a planner, who knew that Rome could lose a battle, and Rome lost many battles, but in the end, Rome always would win the war. And the most important issue, some claim also that also the climate change was a problem for the Romans. Surely, the Romans had to face immigration. How did the Romans face immigration? By integration. One could become a Roman, whatever one's origin, skin color, or religion. It's very important. Romans were not racist, were not discriminatory, save towards the Goths, who were mocked because the Romans considered them too tall and too blonde. And when the Romans had to choose an ancestor, a founder father, the Romans had a terrible story. A Roman story begins with a kill. Romulus killed his own brother. And the story goes on with a rape. Lucrece was raped by the king's son, the people revolted against the kings, and the republic was born. So when the Romans became master of the world, they needed a more glorious story. Where can they find it? In Greece, in the Greek poems. Grecia capta ferum victorem cepit. In being conquered, Greece conquered her ferocious conqueror. Some claimed the Romans are descendants of Achilles, the strongest. Some other claimed, no, the Romans are descendants of Ulysses, the smartest. Virgil, yesterday in New York, in a 9/11 memorial, I saw, and I moved a verse of Aeneid, no day will erase you from the memory of time. Virgil said, no, we the Romans are the descendants of Aeneas, the pious, the merciful, the compassionate. Aeneas is not a winner, is not a conqueror, he's a defeated hero. Aeneas is not the master of his fate, he does not what he wants. He would like to fight for Troy, he has to flee. He would like to stay with his woman, he has to abandon her. He falls in love with Dido, he has to abandon also Dido. But Aeneas is when he has to flee from Troy, he brings his son, Iolus, the ancestor of Julius Caesar, by the hand, and he carried his father, Anchises, on his shoulders. Aeneas is the pious hero who cares for the elders and for the descendants, who take charge of the past and of the future, who looks ahead and behind. Pietas doesn't mean only mercy. Pietas means responsibility, moral strength, devotion to the gods, to the family, to homeland. And pietas is the Roman sentiment, is the Roman feeling in which the Christians recognize themselves. This is the reason why Dante, our great poet, chose Virgil as a guide in his trip in the afterlife, in hell, in purgatory, in paradise. And Virgil wrote that a young child will be born to save mankind. And the Christians thought that Virgil had predicted the birth of Jesus.
Prophesying.
Surely Jesus Christ was born at Augustus' age, at Virgil age. I'm not American, I'm not this honor to be American. But in my opinion, one of the secrets of American strength is openness. Is to be attractive and open to the best ones, to the youngest, to the smartest, to the most gifted, to the best from all over the world. If America will close itself, America will lose something. One could become a Roman, one can become an American. Whatever one's origin, skin color, or religion, it's very, very, very important. In America, everybody talks to me about the decline. Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire is the most quoted book about ancient Rome. Trust me, America is not declining. If there is something new in the world, a medicine, a vaccine, a book, a novel, a film, a TV series, a scientific discovery, a technological innovation, a cultural fad, and now also Pope, it comes from the USA. The rest of the world, China included, or copies or buys. The rest of the world listens to your music, reads your books, treats itself with your medicine, with your protocols. The rest of the world dreams to come to America, to study in America, to work in America, to become an American. So the roots of the strength of the power of America is to be open and attractive. If America will lose it, we lose something important.
Thank you for that. I just want to, did you guys want to clap? I don't know. It felt like that deserved like applause, didn't it?
Okay. Listen, sometimes also the Romans became strong. For example, Augustus said there are too many migrants. Aeneas was a migrant, Aeneas was a refugee. But Augustus said there are too many refugees, too many migrants in Rome. Some of them have to leave. And so they asked him, who has to leave? The people that work, no, they can stay. The people that don't work, has to leave. And the storytellers, what about the storytellers? No, the storytellers have to leave. I'm wondering, what about the journalists? I am afraid that we have to leave too. But there were no journalists. There were many poets at the court of Augustus. Virgil, I think he was an amazing man. He was very shy, he stammered, he was a lawyer, but when he took the speak for the first time in court, he couldn't say a word. And anytime Augustus wanted to force Virgil to declaim Aeneid in public, he refused because he was shy. And before dying, he ordered to destroy the Aeneid, but fortunately his companions refused to obey him, and we can read the Aeneid now.
You spent quite a bit of time in the book on Virgil and Aeneas and that history, the founding of the Republic. And then you also, the rest of the book kind of follows more or less chronologically. You dedicate quite a bit of time to Julius Caesar, to Augustus, and Constantine. Can you talk about how you decided, which eras of the Roman Empire, of ancient Rome, really to highlight? There's so many.
I chose the heroes that can talk us about us. Mm-hmm. For example, Caesar. If he had been just a writer. Gallia omnis divisa est in partes tres. The whole goal is divided into 3 parts. The beginning of the Bello Gallico is a great beginning. It's a great lead. If he had been only a political leader, if he had been just a military commander, he has gone down in history. But he was all of 3 things. And he was also a great journalist. He was a colleague of ours. When Caesar and Cleopatra made the first Nile cruise in history on a golden boat that went upstream along the river among hippos, crocodiles, temples, palms, from Alexandria until to the borders of Ethiopia. But the cruise was interrupted by a bad news. A king of Pontus, a region of Turkey, revolted against the Romans. Caesar defeated him in 4 hours, and he wrote to the Senate, Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. 3 words, 12 letters, the first tweet in history. And Caesar was a megalomaniac. He was 32. He got his first political charge, procurator in Spain. He went to Gibraltar. He saw the columns that Hercules had erected to say this is the edge of the world, the end of the world. And there was also a statue of Alexander the Great. And in that fatal place, Caesar had an emotional breakdown, bursting into tears. His companion asked him, "Why are you crying, Caesar?" "Because I think that at my age, Alexander the Great had conquered the whole world, and me, I haven't yet done nothing glorious." "Caesar, you are crazy," replied the companions. "Rome is not a kingdom. Rome is not an empire. Rome is a republic. And we, the populares, we are losing the battle," because Caesar was the leader of populares, of the left. He supported the frumentatio, the free distribution of wealth. But the power was in the hand of his enemies, Pompey, Sylla, Cicero, Cato, the senators, the aristocrats, the optimates, the defense of the republic. But Caesar wanted to become master of the world, and he made an alliance with the people. And he won the war. Pompey was defeated. He fled to Egypt. Ptolemy, king of Egypt, cut off his head and brought it to Caesar on a silver plate. And what's the reaction of Caesar? Caesar bursts into tears and he laments, "You deprive me of the only possible victory in a civil war, to forgive the defeated, to give salvation to the enemies." But he didn't say that if Ptolemy had not cut off that head,
that he wouldn't have done
Caesar would have done so the same. And then, you know that Caesar was also a great lover, husband of all wives and the wife of all husbands. And he made the first triumvirato with Pompey and Crassus, but he had a love affair with the Crassus' wife and Pompey's wife. So he slept with the wives of his allies. And he had also a love affair with a man, with a king of Bithynia, Nicomedes. And his soldier, to mock him, called him Queen of Bithynia. Also Dante called Caesar Queen of Bithynia in Purgatory. And a day in the Senate, Caesar was supporting the cause of Nicomedes, and Cicero interrupted him saying, forget it, Caesar, because everybody knows what Nicomedes has given to you and what you have given to him. And another day, Caesar receives a note in Senate, and Cato, another of his enemies, pointed the finger. Look at Caesar. He is receiving a note from the conspirators, from Catilina. And Caesar replied, no, it's from your sister. He had an love affair with Cato's sister, Servilia. Servilia, Cato's sister, had a young boy, Brutus. Some whispered that he was Caesar's son. It was not true. Brutus killed Caesar, and he wounded Caesar just in the groin to avenge his real father. And Cato hated Caesar. Cato was the last man who surrendered Caesar, and he retired. He took a long, hot bath. He read the Phaedo, the Platonic dialogue on the immortality of the soul. He decided to commit suicide. He took his sword, he plunged it into his belly, but a doctor sewed up his wound. He reopened it, and he wanted to die. He tore his guts away, and Seneca, the great philosopher who will commit suicide, wrote that generous spirit non emisit sed eiecit. He did not exhale it, he snatched it away. And you know that at the end, when Caesar was becoming really the master of the world, he wanted to conquer Persia and Germany. Brutus and Cassius decided to kill him. They killed him 23 once, but they committed 2 political mistakes. Some said, let's kill also Antony, the Caesar's legion commander. But Brutus said, no, it's a tyrannicide. Only the tyrant, only Caesar has to die. Some other said, please, let's take Caesar's corpse and throw it into the river, into Tiber. But Brutus said, no, it was a great Roman commander. He deserves a great funeral. But at Caesar's funeral, Antony read his will, his testament, and Caesar left 300 sesterces each, every Roman citizen, $1,000. And the people burst into tears, because I think that at every funeral, everyone mourns their own death. But that time ever more so, because Caesar was a father for the people. So the people revolted. I have revolted against Crassus and Brutus, Caesar's killer, that has to flee. Brutus has a vision, a giant, a shadow, who tells, I am your evil genius, I will see you in Philippi. And when, before the last battle, Brutus asked, where are we now? What's the name of this place? We are in Philippi. He understood that he was going to a bad end.
Can I just ask, we have a couple of questions from the audience, but before we get to that...
I'm a little bit logoroic, I will be shorter next time.
I think one question I have is, I mean, I think there's no question that Julius Caesar was a great man, a great figure in history. Where do you see like the significance of him, and are there any parallels to today? What is he bringing? Where does he speak to you today?
Some said that Caesar made an alliance between the leader and the people, and some says also Trump made the same, because he made an alliance between him and the people against the establishment, against the... I think that the historical comparisons are always dangerous. Yeah. Because history is never the same. Surely, in Caesar, I found 2 words that moved me. The first is Italy. The second is London. When Caesar conquered Gaul, he wrote a message to the Senate. Before, we had in Gaul just a path, the coast, to go to Spain, the region called now a province, from provincia in Latin. Now, from the Alps to the ocean, there is nothing for Italy to fear. It was the first time in history that the word Italy was written in the text, in a political text. Then he conquered the Gaul, and he was told that there was north an island, a mysterious island, a very cold island, covered by perennial ice, just like in Interstellar, the planet, no? With an island where the nights lasted 3 months. And Caesar said, I want to discover the edge of the world. I want to conquer also this island. He crossed the channel. He landed, obviously, in Dover. He defeated the Britons, but he had not horses to pursue them. So he came back with horses, defeated again the Britons. He pursued them until a beautiful area along the river Thames. He called that area Londinium. Also London is a Latin name. Mm-hmm. So everything in Caesar's life speaks about us. But his heir, Augustus, was not a genius as him. He was a wise and cruel person, and he died in his own bed. Unfortunately, we cannot say the same about Caesar. I just tell one story about Augustus. Augustus was very jealous of his daughter, Julia. He didn't have a son. He just had a daughter, Julia. Julia had a love affair with Ovid, the poet. And jealous, Augustus exiliated Ovid on the Black Sea. Ovid wrote, my eyes are guilty because they saw something that they didn't have to see. And some thought to an erotic jest, a love jest between father and daughter. Surely, Augustus passed an odious measure, the honor killing. A man who found his wife, his sister or his daughter with another man and killed her will go unpunished. The honor killing was abolished in Italy only in 1981. But Roman women occupied the forum to protest against that odious measure. Women, it's true that women were excluded by politics. But in Rome, women had enjoyed a greater freedom than in any other ancient civilization. Women were not relegated to the home, just like in ancient Greece. The women could frequent arenas and baths, could dine with men, could, above all, own and sell and buy things, could be independent, could make business. All rights that in Italy were granted to our grandmothers only in 1919, after World War I.
Yeah. So it's clearly a history of a lot of violence and murder. And one of our questions here, you mentioned the violent murder of Remus in the founding story of Rome, and murder and violence was both extraordinary in Rome in how it brought new leaders and eras, while also so mundane in the conquering of nations and punishment of citizens. How do you see this legacy translated to the modern world?
There are two horrible crimes in Roman history. The assassination of the Gracchus, Tiberius Gracchus. Caius Gracchus was a great man who fought for the people, and were killed by the aristocrats in a terrific way. And the Spartacus revolt. Have you seen the movie by Stanley Kubrick, Spartacus? And Crassus defeated the slaves, the rebel slaves, but he has a problem. He doesn't know who Spartacus is. And he promises, you are safe, you are free, but I have to know who's Spartacus. And Kirk Douglas was standing, but some, no, it's me, Spartacus. No, yes, Spartacus. No, yes, Spartacus. Right. Great story. All of us were crucified. Terrible. 40,000 crucified. So I don't want to idealize Roman history. An empire is always a fact of blood, violence, hegemony. Desertum fecerunt et pacem appellaverunt, wrote Tacitus. They made a desert and they called it peace, Pax Romana. Surely, but you know that Rome inspired many novels, many comics, many films, many TV series. When I was young, my parents watched Barabbas, The Robe, Quo Vadis, Ben-Hur. I read, when I was young, Asterix. And I remember Gladiator. Everybody in Italy knows how Gladiator begins. At my signal, unleash hell. If a phrase that also the football player, the soccer player used in the ground to encourage his companions. But I remember also how Gladiator ends. Before dying, Gladiator said, "There was once a dream, that was Rome. It shall be realized." What was Rome's dream? The government of the world, the universal peace, a community as large as the known world at peace, not because it was weak and divided, but because it was strong and united, a multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic world. And now we need the Rome's dream, because we need a government of the world. We have to face the same issues, immigration, permanent state of war, climate change. And the only country on earth that can fulfill the Rome's dream is the United States of America.
Sort of related to that, another question from the audience. Do you think the expansion of the Roman Empire was a matter of defensive imperialism or the result of Roman militarism and its culture of violence?
Both. Surely there was a culture of the war. The war is always violence. But there is also a strategy. But the same strategy of the Roman Empire, of the American Empire. For the American Empire, the most important is not occupy a land, a territory, is to make an agreement, a pact, an alliance with other peoples, with other states that are in different position of strength. No? Mexico is not Canada, and Italy is not Germany, and so on. The Americans did the same, because the Romans did the same. The legions were not on the borders, displayed on the borders. The borders are too long, too big, the empire was too great. The legions stayed in the camps. They were moved where it was necessary. And all around the empire, there was a system of satellite state, satellite kings, who helped Rome, who gave troops to Rome, who sometimes got also aids from Rome.
Allies.
For example, Herod, king of Judea, he was a satellite king of the Romans. Do you know that the founders' fathers looked to the Roman Republic? Hamilton, Madison signed their articles with the name Publius. Publius was one of the first Roman consuls. In 1777, George Washington, when rejected the peace offers of the British generals, proclaimed, "The United Armies of America are fighting for the noblest of causes, freedom." The same principles inspired the Roman arms in the days of its glory. So also Washington looked at the Republic, and at the end of the war, Washington's generals founded the Society of Cincinnatus, just like the military leader who refused the crown of king and retired himself in the country, in his small farm, and he came back again to save the Republic. But John Booth, Lincoln's killer, called his kill with the code name of Ides of March, exactly as Brutus and Cassius, Caesar's killers. Obviously, he was wrong. Lincoln was a great president. He was not a tyrant. But there was the idea that the American Republic was becoming an empire. In June 1963, John Kennedy spoke in Berlin, and he told, 2 millennia ago, the greatest pride was to be able to say, civis Romanus sum, I am a Roman citizen. Now, in the free world, the greatest pride is to say, ich bin ein Berliner, I am a Berlin citizen. So the key phrase of the Cold War was carved out of a Roman motto. But my favorite speech delivered from an American president is the speech that Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivered 5 June 1944. Maybe his last great speech. The day before, American troops entered Rome and freed us, the Italians, from the fascism. The day after, American troops landed in Normandy and began the liberation of France from the Nazis. And Roosevelt said, Italian people is not our enemy. Italy is not only fascism. Italy is Dante. Italy is Michelangelo. Italy is Galileo. Italy is Marconi. Italy is the courage of Christopher Columbus. And Rome was not only a military target. Rome was the republic. Rome was the empire. Rome was indeed the Catholic Church. When I listened to that Roosevelt speech, I moved.
Mm-hmm. I recognize, too, what was interesting about your book. I think sometimes when we think about Rome, we think about sort of just one era. We think of the empire. But as you've sort of laid out for us, there was the Republic, there was the ancient Roman Empire, and then there was a bunch of other stuff, but also the Holy Roman Empire, which was sort of a separate thing. And I think a lot of us kind of conflate those in our minds. And at the risk of, I recognize what you were saying earlier about, being careful about looking at parallels in history, but when you compare the rise and fall, or when you think about the rise and fall of Rome, as we're talking about it now, to America today, where are we in that arc, do you think?
Rome lasted 12 centuries. So America has many centuries.
We're like 3, maybe.
I think America is not declining because, au contraire, America's influence is growing. I know America has some problems, many problems. There are many poor, many people without health service. But I don't want to explain American politics to you. You have to explain American politics to me. Surely, I am impressed that the digital emperors look to the Roman emperors. Bill Gates is a fan of ancient Rome. The famous speech from Steve Jobs, stay hungry, stay foolish, was, I don't say copied, but inspired by Seneca, the philosopher. Elon Musk proclaimed himself emperor of Mars. He wanted to have a physical fight with Mark Zuckerberg in Colosseum. Mark Zuckerberg, his wife Priscilla wrote, we spent our honeymoon in Rome, but I thought to be a threesome, me, Mark, and Augustus, because Mark Zuckerberg wanted to be photographed with all the statues of Augustus he met. And in Rome, there are many statues of Augustus, because Augustus was the first name in history whose face was known by all of his contemporaries. There were in ancient Rome 2,500 statues with the face of Augustus, propaganda, one in each city of the empire. Mark Zuckerberg has his hair cut like Augustus, but I don't have this problem. He called his daughters Augusta, Maxima, and Aurelia, and he ended his meeting with the cry Dominium in Latin. Why? I think that the digital emperors look to the Roman emperors because Augustus and the others were the first men who ruled a community as large as the world, composed of people who would never meet physically, but they were born, lived, and died after one Caesar, and they think to be that Caesar.
Yeah, it's clear that the influence of the Caesars continues today. You've mentioned a couple of times, the events at the Vatican this week. A lot of eyes have been there because of the death of Pope Francis and just yesterday the election of Pope Leo. As an Italian journalist and a historian of Rome, how do you interpret the significance of an American pope?
It's very, very, very important. Yesterday I was on a train, regional 59, 95 train from New York to Washington, and we were in Philly. And all the passengers were watching on the Chronicle from St. Peter, some on Fox, some on CNN. It depends, obviously, on their political ideas. But everybody was very happy. It was a cry of joy when there was the news, the first North American pope. I'm sure he will be a great pope. The Pope of the world. He was born in Chicago, Illinois. He grew with Cardinal Bernardin, very important for his social engagement. He studied in Pennsylvania, in Villanova University, whose motto is Latin motto, Veritas, Unitas, Caritas, truth, unity, charity. He was a missionary in Peru, in the poor America, in Latin America. He was called in Vatican 2 years ago by Francis. Leo is a great name. Leo the 13th was the Pope of the Rerum Novarum, the new things, who tried first among the popes to conciliate Christianity and the modern world. But Leo was also the Pope who stopped the barbarians, not with the sword, but with the cross, the Pope of peace. And Leo was the name of the first companion of St. Francis. After Pope Francis, Pope Leo. Really, I think that in a personal story, Prevost has the story of America. He has French, Italian, Spanish roots, and I read today on New York Times that the father of his mother was an African American. It's great, it's amazing. The first North American Pope, a Pope with an African American grandfather, a Pope open to the world. He speaks Italian perfectly. He speaks French, he speaks Portuguese, obviously speaks English. He speaks Latin too. He will be a great Pope. And just 3 years ago, nobody in Italy could think that an American can become Pope. There was a veto. The USA are too powerful, too rich. The rest of the people doesn't love the USA. North America cannot be elected Pope. It was not true.
So you're not disappointed that it wasn't an Italian
Absolutely
Pope?
not. Absolutely not. Yes, a little bit, okay. I am a good friend of Matteo Zuppi, Archbishop of Bologna, the community of Sant'Egidio who made the peace in Mozambique. He's a great man. But I am a Catholic. I am happy for Pope Leo. And I add this. If you know that the West is a building built on the fundaments of ancient Rome. If Christianity is the most important religion of the West, if many of us believe in Jesus, if 2 days ago a Pope, an American Pope, has been elected in Rome, it's because the Roman Empire became Christian. Mm-hmm. It's true that the Roman emperors persecuted the Christians. Why? Also, the god could become a Roman, but every god has his homeland. Isis from Egypt, Mithra from Persia, Yahweh from Judea. The Christian God was different because the Christian God was universal, and the Christians refused to recognize and adore the other gods and also the emperor. Above all, the Romans persecuted the Christians because they didn't understand them. The Romans appeared, that Christianity appeared to the Romans to have turned their world upside down. Poverty, that for the Romans was a disgrace, became for the Christians a virtue. The body, instead of being massaged, perfumed, made up, exhibited, trained, delighted with any kind of pleasure, wine, sex, food, the terms, the body became something negative. No? The matter is not important for Christianity. The soul is important, the spirit is important. And the cross, that was the symbol of the most atrocious, painful, humiliating, public death, became the symbol of salvation. But an emperor, Constantine, had an idea. That strange religion that nobody can erase it, we can embrace it. One God in heaven, one emperor in earth. It's true that Christianity promises a revolution. The first ones will be the last one, but not in this life, in afterlife, in the next life. And now I saw the cross, a golden cross. Francis didn't have a golden cross. Francis didn't have the red mozzetta. Pope Francis had a different style than Pope Leo style. But I saw this cross. I remember that the cross was for the Roman the way to punish the rebel slaves, sedition. Mm-hmm. And now cross is a symbol of hope, liberty, fraternity, and salvation.
Right. We've talked a lot about the lasting influence, obviously, of Rome and the empire. To your point earlier, what should we learn about what not to do from ancient Rome?
Not to close ourselves, because why the Roman Empire, I know my theory is that it never fell, but Surely the Western Roman Empire was conquered by the barbarians. Why? It's a mystery. Nobody knows. I think some say no, the problem was Christianity. Some say no, the problem is too many slaves. It's interesting. Too many slaves. Too many people without hope, with nothing to lose. People who didn't want to fight for Rome, for the emperor, for the state, because they were slaves. They had no rights. Too many latifundium. No? In its glory day, Rome had the farmer soldier, the small properties. Latifundium is the end of economy because only the slaves work, people don't lose energies. Surely America doesn't have to close the borders, to close her mind, to close too much. Openness is the secret, to be attractive. When Rome was attractive, Rome was the center of the world. Caput mundi, we say.
So stay open. Keep that in mind. We only have a few minutes left, but I want to get one more question from the audience in. This one says, Caesar weaponized populism, catchy phrases, the loyalty of his soldiers, and the promise that only he could save the Republic to dismantle a long-standing democracy. Under Augustus, Roman embraced an end to civil war to rally around a totalitarian king for life. Do you think Americans are ready to give up their democratic republic? And in turmoil, let me see this, democratic republic for the certainty of dictatorship, should we be fearful?
I don't think so. I think that American democracy is very strong. I covered the two Trump's victory in 2016 and in 2024. In 2016, nobody, all the people I talked to were sure that Hillary is going to win. The only people I heard, Trump is going to win, was Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon also predicted the election of Prevost 10 days ago. He added that it will be a disgrace, but I think that it was a great story. Now, I don't want to talk about American politics. I know the country is divided, the country is polarized. We, the Europeans, for us, it's not easy to understand Trump, I admit. But we in Italy, we have a prime minister, a populist prime minister. Italy is the only country in Western Europe where the populists won twice the elections. In 2018, the leftist populist. In 2022, the right populist. Democracy is there. American democracy is too strong. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the cause of America has always been freedom, liberty. I can say the same about Italy. We had a dictatorship. We invented the fascism. Mussolini thought to be the new Augustus. It was not true. Mm-hmm. I remember, we've talked before about Cato, who preferred death to slavery. When Augustus won the Civil War, as you said before, he asked his poets to write poems about his victory. Virgil, Ovid, Mecenates. Horace refused, because Horace was Republican. Horace fought against Augustus and Antony in Philippi. He was with Brutus. He was with Cassius. And Augustus could put him in jail. No, but he wrote a letter. He wrote, please, Horace, you are the greatest poet that we have. Please write something about me. Are you afraid of compromising with future generation that could think you are a friend of mine? So the emperor humiliated himself to have a poem from Horace. And Horace finally wrote a poem about Cleopatra's death. Nunc est bibendum. Now we have to drink, to celebrate, because Cleopatra is dead. But that poem is full of admiration for Cleopatra, called Fatale Monstrum. Monstrum in Latin doesn't mean monster. It means prodigy, miracle. And why Horace is in love with Cleopatra? Because she preferred death to slavery, liberty. This is the secret of America.
Yeah, there you go. I'll ask you one more question because we got to unfortunately wrap this up. But if you could time travel and spend a day anywhere in the Roman Empire, we won't throw you to the lions, where would you go and what would you do?
I would like to interview Caesar.
Yeah.
To stay a day with him, to spend a day with him, and to try to enter his mind. He was a great actor also. When he landed in Africa to pursue Cato, he stamped and he went down on the land, and the Romans were very superstitious, and so the soldiers said, no, we are losing the battle because our leader is down. But he shouted, te neo te, Africa, I keep you, Africa. Just like he was kissing the earth. So the people, okay, let's go and win the battle. But according to a legend, the Scipio family was unbeatable in Africa, and the head of the opposite of the army was Scipio, Metello Scipio. And so the soldiers said, what a problem, we cannot win against the Scipio. Caesar said, what a problem? There is no man called Scipio, there is some Scipio, don't we have a Scipio with us? Yes, I am, my name is Scipio. Okay, you are the new leader, we will follow you. And they won the battle. He was a performer too. Also, Trump a little bit a performer, I think, no? So they are similar.
I mean, I imagine if you were able to actually interview Caesar, that's at least one book, if not 10. Lots of material for you. I think that's all the time we have today. Before I close out, I just want to shout out one of our press club members and military historian, Zita Ballinger-Fletcher, who helped out with these questions. I don't know if they're here, but I just wanted to mention that they were instrumental to this. Let me find. Okay. I just want to take a moment to thank the Headliners team and its chair, Jen Judson, for arranging this event, as well as Club Executive Director Didier Soji and the entire club staff for making this possible. Thank you to all of you. We hope you'll also join us on May 22nd for our next Headliner book event. This time it'll be best-selling author and former First Lady of Iceland, Eliza Reid. She'll be discussing Death on the Island, which is her debut mystery novel. Thank you so much, Aldo. Thank you. Can we give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
And it's now my honor, before I shake your hand, to present you with the coveted National Press Club mug. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here.